Hi, I'm Art Kaplan. I run the Division of Medical Ethics at the NYU Grossman School of Medicine. So we have had quite a war in America and in many other countries too about vaccine mandates. Mandated vaccination is something that the Biden administration tried to push through for employers. Supreme Court tossed it out, but there are oodles of vaccine mandates littering the landscape of the United States and other countries. Austria just put in a vaccine mandate for every citizen. You have to show proof of vaccination, or you pay on the spot a $600 fine. NYU, where I work, has a vaccine mandate in place for all healthcare workers, anybody who's got an ID that is part of the NYU health system. Many colleges and universities are required or mandated COVID vaccination to go back to school in person. And there are plenty of businesses, despite what the Supreme Court said about the president's authority, who have imposed vaccine mandates. The interesting thing about a mandate is that it can vary from very strong, Austria, show me a card on the spot, to moderate, you can't come to work, you can't go to school, you can't get into this restaurant without showing proof of vaccination, to relatively weak. We're going to have an honor system that says, you probably did vaccinate to come to this sports event, but we're not checking that hard. So we've had mandates that range from fairly tough to mandates that are fairly weak. But in every instance that I know of vaccination, there's always been, with a mandate, the possibility of an exemption. And those exemptions fall into two main categories. One is a medical exemption. I can't be vaccinated because I have an allergy or some health problem that might be exacerbated if I were to get a COVID vaccine, or I have a religious objection and I don't want to take the vaccine. It violates my religious ideas. Sometimes that's extended over to philosophical objection, meaning it's something out of conscience I don't want to do, or I just choose not to do it. It's not grounded in some claim of religious belief that it violates some religious tenet. It's just a choice that ought to be respected. Well, all of this sometimes winds up in the office of the doctor. And the question becomes, who can grant those exemptions? There are many people who show up at the doctor's office saying, could you give me a medical exemption? And I think the answer to that is you can't and shouldn't unless they really do have a medical condition that exempts them. And for COVID vaccination, there's very few things that would exempt you. Flu vaccine, maybe you could claim an egg allergy. For some other vaccines, there might be other medical indications that would exempt you. For some people, they don't have an immune system. No point in vaccinating them. They can't build up anything by way of antibody resistance. So maybe in a few instances, you should be thinking about an exemption. And what about the religious or philosophical exemption? Well, I think you want to look there for requests that are made in good faith, good conscience. Do you know this patient? Are they just showing up out of the blue saying, I want to get an exemption because I have a religious belief? If they can explain what it is that they object to, rightly or wrongly, then probably as a physician in good conscience, you might give them the exemption if you're persuaded they're sincere, the belief is authentic, not something they're just making up out of fear of vaccines, misunderstanding of the dangers of vaccines. The AMA recently suggested that it ought to be physicians or people supervised by physicians who have the ability to grant exemptions. And I tend to agree. There are too many people out there doing homeopathy, natural healing, licensed as chiropractors, who are waiving vaccination mandates. I don't think they have the knowledge, and many of them, they're dyed-in-the-wool opponents of vaccination, which isn't the place I want society to turn to get exemptions. You at least have to be well informed about the importance of vaccination, the safety of vaccination, and it doesn't make sense for somebody to say, well, part of my healing practice is that I'm anti-vaccine, so come see me and you're going to get exemptions. I don't think that protects the public health. I don't think that's an honest assessment of why someone might be vaccine hesitant. And I don't think that's a place to try and get educated about the reality of what's a danger from vaccines and what's a danger from COVID, and why COVID really is a heck of a lot more dangerous than getting vaccinated. So I know there's been a lot of political fighting about who can give an exemption. I know there are huge fights between mainstream medicine, and I'll call them alternate healers, about their authority, their ability to license. But in this instance, it does seem to me, when we're in a plague or for a future plague, we ought to be tough in the name of public health and make sure that we don't invoke anti-vaccine opponents as the place to seek vaccine exemptions. I'm Art Kaplan at the NYU Grossman School of Medicine. Thanks for watching.